Number 20 for the practice exam. A principal theory in finance states that as bond yields rise, investors take funds out of the stock market, causing it to fall, and buy debt security bonds. Consecutive weekly data, which use the federal funds rate as a proxy for bond yields, and Dow Jones Index as a measurement of the value of the stock market, as reported by the Commerce Department in the winter of 1998, are shown. All right, so let's look at this data table. We have two quantitative measurements, and if you look down, the second question is asking to describe the relationship in the graph by completing a scatter plot with a regression line. So that's a pretty big indicator that this is a linear regression t-test. And one of the things you're going to have to identify is what is your explanatory and what is your response. And again, if you look down, it's makes your life easier. They show you that federal funds rates are the X and your response are the Dow Jones at that rate. So letter A, it says to draw the graph, and that doesn't take any part of explanation from me. I think for the most part, all of you could put the scatter plot on the graph and sketch it out. When you draw the line, though, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just draw a line that best fits all of the points. So 6.8 and 2050 right here. See that? 6.95 and 2010. Anyway, that's letter A. Moving down to the part about the testing it out into hypothesis testing. Our null hypothesis, remember, when we state the null, you can either say that beta is equal to 0, and then you use the same thing for the alternative, beta not equal to or greater or less than, or you can use rho. And rho refers to the correlation coefficient. We call it rho because it's the correlation coefficient for the population data. So this little funny p is called rho. And when we equal it to 0, that means that there's no correlation. And remember, when you state your null for linear regression, you're saying that there is no relationship between x and y, so there's no correlation. All right? Then what we're testing out here is that there is some sort of correlation. We don't care if it's a negative or a positive correlation. We just want to know if there is some sort of correlation. And the reason we're using not equal to is because right at the top here it says to test to see if there is a linear correlation in the population. So it just wants we're just trying to figure out if there is some sort of relationship at all. It doesn't matter if it's a positive or negative. So that's why we use not equal to 0. Our alpha level is 0.05. They tell us that right here. Okay, so the easiest way to solve for this is, again, plugging it in your calculator and run a linear regression t-test. For the sake of time, I decided to plug in all the information. So list 1 is the federal fund rates, right here, federal fund rates, 6.8, 6.95, and so on. List 2 is the Dow Jones at that corresponding fund rate. Okay, so you want to go to stat test, and towards the bottom, it's the linear regression t-test. Press enter. And then you want to indicate that list 1 is the x-axis. It's your federal fund rates. List 2 is your y, the Dow Jones. So key frequency at 1, and your alternative, again, is that you want to find just any relationship at all, so not equal to. And you calculate. Reg equal is, the calculation part. And there it is. Your t statistic is negative 5.62, or you can actually give us the correlation coefficient, which is negative 0.9168. We can take that as an answer too. The p-value is 0.00135, and comparing that to an alpha level of 0.05, that's less, so we reject the null, and then we say that there is significant linear correlation between the federal fund rate and Dow Jones. And by looking at the drawing, it's a negative correlation. So that's it for B.